In about 5 months on the job, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is already arguing that Congress needs a raise. And you know what? I actually agree. I've seen a lot of criticism saying that, Congress shouldn't get more money, they don't do enough work, but the issue is actually really, really complicated. And I think Ocasio-Cortez actually brings up a really good argument as to why we should give more money to public officials. And I mean this sincerely. But if we're going to do anything like that, we have to ban politician to lobbying pipeline. That's one of the biggest problems in this country, the revolving door of people getting cushy jobs at big industry companies to go back on Capitol Hill and then lobby their past colleagues. People can get elected to Congress like 2 years, like one election, fail miserably, and then use that access to go become a lobbyist and get rich. That should not be a thing, right? That's probably like the most activist-y thing I've ever said. I think politicians shouldn't be allowed to a certain degree. And I'll say this. I got really excited when Ocasio-Cortez and Ted Cruz were teaming up to do something about this. After you deal with the lobbying, you need to recognize that it's a really, really difficult job. There's been 2 arguments: take their money away or give them more money. And I think more money might be the right answer. Disincentivize the monetary gain aspect of the job. We also have really big challenges with, Ocasio-Cortez and other Congress people. They're getting elected every 2 years, so they're constantly concerned about re-election. Man, I can't imagine why anybody would ever want to be a politician. Good Lord, it's probably the worst thing I couldn't imagine. No way, just not interested. But anyway, there was a backlash. Ocasio-Cortez is not happy. She says all workers deserve cost of living increases. And I agree. Check this out. They say, as the Daily Wire noted Monday, many in Congress feel like it's finally time to give themselves a long overdue raise after suffering a decade-long pay freeze at just $174,000, more than 3 times the median salary in America, about $47,000 in the first quarter of 2019. Their proposed new salary would be $178,700, a $4,700 raise. But that plan appears to have been rather quickly derailed amid internal backlash from Democrats who fear that giving themselves more taxpayer money might end up putting their re-election chances in jeopardy. It's always about stupid re-election. No, they deserve a cost of living increase for one simple reason. They're required to maintain a residence in their home district, and they have to live somewhere in D.C. There are a lot of Congress people who they actually sleep in their offices. I will stress, somehow, some of these people in Congress have become multimillionaires. I think we can all recognize there's a serious problem with that. And I think we can all recognize that at a populist level, be it the left or the right, we got a bunch of elite, corrupt, I'm not going to swear, bad people in office who have no one's interest but their own at heart. So here's what I think. No more revolving door nonsense. No more pipeline to the lobby. No more lobby to Congress. Like, none of this. You work in Congress. I do not want to see someone then appear on the board of some big company with a cushy job, or using insider information or passing laws, buying stock and then passing laws, all this other nonsense. It's like, man, if you're going to work for the people, your interest should be the people. How we solve this problem, I honestly don't know. It's really, really complicated. Motivations, loopholes. You can't just snap your fingers and do it. But I do think there's an important conversation in giving a raise to Congress. I've thought about this a lot. When I was younger, I said, what if we just take all their money away? Make it so that only people who really want to be in politics will do it, because it's not going to be a path to a paycheck. But then you realize it's rich people already. It's like a ton of millionaires already. Why? Because they don't care about the money. It's the power, the access, and the opportunity. Poor people don't often become politicians because of how much money you need to raise and how much exposure you need to actually get in office. So it tends to be people of means who are able to run. So offering zero money is not an incentive to do better, because the rich people running will be like, I don't care, I'm rich already. But what about the people of modest means? Ocasio-Cortez, notably of modest means, who's a bartender. I don't think she has the experience to do her job. I think she's really bad at it. She's had a few good moments, but she often says nonsensical things. But you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad for one reason. It shows that in America, you can be uneducated. And I'm not saying that specifically about her. Like, I think she's ignorant, but she's educated. But you can be dumb. You can be working at a bar, and you can become a U.S. politician. Good. I think Ocasio-Cortez is detrimental to my politics, notably environmentalism, because she says a bunch of nonsensical things about farting cows, which makes it really hard for me to argue why we should implement, policy and ideas that are going to make the environment safer, stronger, help deal with climate change, whether you agree with it or not. There is a conversation to be had with those who don't believe it's real because there's economic incentives and there's just like technology innovation, economic boosts. There's a win-win for everybody. And she comes out and says it's nonsensical, intersectional, socialist nonsense. And I'm like, please stop. You're making this hard for me. You're not coming together with people in compromise. You just think you're right and you're pushing other people away and being rude. Please don't do that. But I will stress, in the end, I think it's really great to see young progressive populists defeat these corporate incumbents of mass means, of like all this wealth. But then the question is, we don't want only people like Ocasio-Cortez in politics because admittedly, I think she's doing bad, right? That's my opinion. She represents something good, but she's doing bad. So how do we make sure we get politicians who don't want to just make money and get benefits? It's not about raises. I think what it comes down to then is we need to restrict this revolving door pipeline. Okay, you work for the government, you're banned from holding certain positions. There's loopholes. Seriously, no matter what you do, they will find a loophole, but it doesn't mean we don't do anything. Admittedly, I know sometimes doing nothing is better than something, but in this case, something's happening. What can we do? Cortez and Ted Cruz are talking about it. Well, let's read on because I don't want to just ignore. There was a backlash. Let's see what happened. The Daily Wire writes, though supporters of the pay raise stress that they had bipartisan support and insist that a modest bump in pay is a necessary cost of living adjustment, Politico reported Monday evening the plan has been postponed. Top Democrats agreed in a closed-door meeting Monday night to pull a key section of this week's massive funding bill to avoid escalating a clash within their caucus over whether to hike salaries for lawmakers and staff for the first time in a decade. Multiple lawmakers confirmed. At least 15 Democrats, mostly freshmen, in competitive districts, had pushed to freeze pay after some Democratic and Republican leaders quietly agreed to the slight pay increase earlier this month. After intense debate over whether to force members to go on the record about a pay raise on Monday, Politico reports the vulnerable Democrats appear to have won the argument. Voting for a pay increase they maintained would hurt them in 2020 when Democrats can't afford to lose any ground in the House. Politico cites several Democrats in battleground seats, personally telling House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer that they would protest the vote. Okay, I'll say this. I think it's true. I think people in this country, at a bulk, don't understand necessarily what some things, mean, what will happen if they do something, right? If a Democrat says, I want a pay raise, then people will just knee-jerk reaction say, oh, no, you're taking money, you're stealing money. But there's real reasons why people might need a raise. Again, Cortez is maintaining a residence in New York and in D.C. So they do need a little bit more than, the median. You want to talk about the median income, $47,000 in the U.S.? Sure, but D.C. and New York are really expensive. So it's hard. It's a hard problem to solve. But I'll tell you what I want. You know what I would do if I were to ever run? I would just be a straight shooter the whole way. I'd be like, look, guys, we need a raise. I'll answer any question as long as it takes. We'll have a conversation about it. I will explain like I do. I will talk and talk and talk. And if it doesn't matter because people don't understand, so be it. Honesty is the best policy. Could you imagine if every politician just said, we are going to be completely honest about why we want to do these things? There would be less constraint. It's like, man, I've cited Bill Maher like 57 times today, but he made a really great point. He said, in private, we're all politically incorrect. What we're doing online on social media, those are like our avatars for a social media nation that may not even exist. I don't know if Bill Maher said that part, but he said, we're all politically incorrect in private. What I say on this camera is like 99.9% of what I actually believe. The reason I say 99.9 is because there's like personal and private stuff that everybody wants to keep, off public record. But for me, I'm like an open book. There's like small things pertaining to like my family I might not talk about. For damn near 100% willing to tell you exactly how I feel. You know what? It's no secret. I don't form my opinions around like what's popular. No, I have no problem saying Dark Phoenix was not a woke movie and I thought it was fine. I have no problem saying that Black Panther was a fine movie. Not the best movie in the world, but not super woke. They did politics really well. I just said what I think. I think in this issue, Ocasio-Cortez is correct. And if all politicians just said, we're going to be honest, they would actually be safer. They're all hiding behind these shells of public appearance. And that means as soon as anybody peeks out of their little oyster shell, someone else is going to fire at them and say, ha, this person's a bigot. Instead of everyone just talking calmly and reasonably and rationally and honestly. And that's why we get the politicians we deserve. A bunch of nonsense liars who just talk about whatever they want to get reelected. So you know what? Props to Ocasio-Cortez for just saying it like it is. They do need a raise. They do. Straight up 100% agree with her on this issue. I don't, I will state, perhaps I need more education. I never think I'm the smartest person. I know that Ocasio-Cortez had a bunch of really dumb things in the past, but hey, broken clock is correct twice a day, right? I actually think Cortez has a lot more points. I actually agree with her on a lot of issues. Private prisons are bad. She's got this one down. I agree with her to an extent on climate change, but man, the Green New Deal was just complete far left socialist regressive nonsense, which makes arguing for environmentalism damn near impossible. But I'm going to agree with her on this. So let's read a little bit more when we can wrap up. She says, members of Congress often vote to cut or keep their allowances low. This is from March 13th. It's a superficial gesture because keeping congressional pay low is what creates the desperation and impetus for good, experienced staff to flee to lobbyist jobs. I agree, 100%. Raising staffer pay helps get money out of politics. Completely agree. And we can see that AOC set a new bar for staff pay by offering $52K, where a bunch of other people pay way less. She says, same with member pay. Members are paid more than average, but jobs require 2 residences, plus we can't take tax deductions for work costs. No one wants to be the one to bring up increases, so instead people take advantage of insider trading loopholes and don't close them for the extra cash. Bravo. 100%. Shut down the loopholes. We'll never close them all, but we can do something about this. Give them more money. I think so. If we can, I mean, I'm not, you know, hey, look, I'm center left, right? I know money doesn't grow on trees. I know the revenue has to be generated somewhere. But I do think we need to figure out how to disincentivize the corruption, the absolute corruption. And it's people saying, what about me? What about my family? And that's where we have to say, what about the people of America that you are here to serve? You know? And maybe honor and integrity aren't enough to stop people from taking the kickbacks and using the loopholes. But maybe we can all come together as a country and say, we can start moving in the direction of weeding out corruption by offering better salaries and make it a lucrative position. Make it a good job to have. Look, I understand 170K, 174K, it's a lot of money. It is. But think about market competition, okay? Think about what someone at that level of skill could do if they were in the private sector. And this is one of the biggest challenges. I work for nonprofits, okay? Let me explain this. One final thing. Executive directors make a ton of money at nonprofits. Some of the biggest nonprofits pay millions of dollars to their executive directors. And I would often hear people say that's BS, they shouldn't make that much money. And when I started working for these nonprofits, I agreed. I said, why should a nonprofit be paying millions of dollars to their executive director? And it was explained to me very simply by one of the people above me. They said, listen, man, the guy who runs this nonprofit, you know, the executive director, he gets like 1.2 million. It's actually like half his market rate if he was going to be the CEO of any private sector company. And he could be. And he chose to come here to do good, and we had to do what we could to compensate him to make it worth his while. So there's a challenge in balancing doing good versus making money. And like no one's immune to this. So when you have someone who's got a family to take care of, they're very intelligent and high level, and you say you could make $10 million as CEO, but we're going to pay you $100,000, they're going to be like, I'll take the $10 million and then invest that money in my own nonprofit, right? There's other ways to do good. Instead, they say, we'll pay you something really good. It won't be as good as if you were a CEO, but you'll get paid over $1 million. And the guy says, I could take $1 million. And then I'm doing something good with my time, and I want to do this job in the nonprofit. So it's hard to just condemn it outright. I think the solution is make serving the public a lucrative position. There's got to be a lot of other laws around that, but perhaps it's a conversation we can have. You let me know what you think, because this admittedly is a complicated issue, but I'm going to end by saying I completely agree with Cortez on this issue insofar as her public statements on the matter. And I'll leave it there. I got one more segment coming up for you in just a few minutes. Stick around.